One of the things that I've been talking a lot about and really just trying to think and brainstorm how can I talk more about this, or how can I help others find their community, their people, right? Because in the spiritual world, it can sometimes be hard because the people that you need to connect with may not currently be in your social circle. They may not even be in the same city as you. They may be all the way across the other side of the globe. In fact, if there's anything that globalization and the recent pandemic have taught us, is that our relationships stretch across the boundaries of space and time. Right? We can connect and resonate with people much older than us, much younger than us, people who live in a totally different part of the world, who have a different culture, have a different way of looking at things. People that on the surface we might not give much importance to, but upon deeper exposure and reflection and time and awareness, we realize, wow, we really are connected to them. We may have different interests on the surface, but in reality, what truly matters, we are aligned. So this video is really sort of my effort to help you think about how can you expand your community? How can you find like-hearted souls who, in the words of Rumi, can fan your flames, can fan sort of your spiritual zeal, your spiritual endeavors, your spiritual awakening? How can you find those people that will fan the flames rather than douse the flames? And it's tricky, right? Because, you can go about it the way that you would probably in other sorts of communities, right? You can try to put a message on social media. You can try to ask your friends. Who knows, maybe your current circle, maybe some of them might be undergoing some sort of transformation. Maybe as you go deeper and deeper into your journey, you might indirectly or directly inspire them to go on their journey, and therefore you convert a friend into a spiritual friend now, if that makes sense. But if you're like me, who has grown up for the most part being pretty much alone in terms of not having a ton of people to really discuss and bounce spiritual ideas and discussions off with, then you have to get a little bit creative. You have to really look at, well, how can I find those people? Those people that, in addition to watching a basketball game with, in addition to having a good time or sharing a nice dinner with, at the same time can actually help me grow and can help ignite a fire, or can help ignite something. And I'll be honest with you, I don't, my social circle currently is very small. I think part of that is just by choice. I think part of that is just also some maybe just a little bit the circumstances of my life. I'm not complaining about it by any means, because I feel like sometimes my friends are not even alive, right? Sometimes reading up in a corner and getting a book or reading a passage, sometimes I feel more connection with that person 3, 4, 500 years before me than I might, say someone that I meet across the street. And of course, there's different levels of connection. I'm not saying that you need to all of a sudden totally sever all your ties and relationships and friendships with the people around you, but recognizing that certain people can bring you certain things, can awaken certain parts of you, just like you can to others, right? Maybe your current group of friends, while you do enjoy spending time with them, maybe they're not necessarily sparking that fire, and that's okay. You'll have to probably make that determination whether or not to be associated with them. But I do think there's ways where you can have, different people can fit different purposes. And this is something that I didn't understand in the beginning. I had very much kind of an all or none approach, but I soon learned that it's very hard to find a person that has everything. It's very hard to find that all-in-one person. And if you are searching for that, it can sometimes be dangerous because you can sometimes be so enamored and absorbed into that person that the minute they leave your sight or the minute they leave their presence, you feel a deep emptiness inside. And I think of, Rumi's story, for example, with Shams. We all know the story, and for those of you who are interested in Rumi, my father, who's done such an amazing, created such an amazing body of work over these last few years, talking about Rumi, his poetry, his spiritual teachings, his life, his connection to science and metaphysics and quantum physics and things like that. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description below if you're interested in reading those books or checking out some of his amazing wisdom. But most of us, or at least some of us, are aware of kind of how Rumi, obviously he had multiple influences before Shams, but Shams, one could argue, left an indelible impression that was really hard for Rumi when Shams was all of a sudden removed from his life. He was, drinking drops when all of a sudden Shams came and opened, the fire hose. And the minute that fire hose was capped off, he was left wondering, well, this can't be it, right? And many people say that inspired sort of Rumi's onslaught of poetic contributions. And I'm not here to kind of debate the historical accuracy of whether or not that was true. But the point that I bring all this up is that because Rumi was so in love, and I don't mean that in a romantic way, but in love and enamored and so deeply connected to Shams as a person, as a being, as a spiritual teacher, and ultimately as a friend, that his absence was very hard. It had a very tough impact on Rumi. Not to say that Rumi didn't bounce back, but certainly by what we know, it took a while for him to kind of discover that I am the Shams that I'm looking for. I am that person, right? Ultimately, all of us, no matter how close a friend is to you, no matter what, at the end of the day, either you or they will leave, or you might leave at the same time. So nothing lasts forever in the physical world. But sometimes just even having that brief window or that brief period of friendship can be just the spark you need to get you to that next step, to get you to that next journey. And for Rumi, certainly, while, as I mentioned, he's had a lot of influences before Shams, it was that encounter and experience and friendship with Shams, even though it was very short-lived, that really inspired the next stage of his journey. And sometimes I think to myself that, perhaps there might, in my lifetime, there might come a time when I encounter someone like that, someone that can really just change, um, change the way I look at a lot of things. But I also realize that, sometimes it's foolish to expect such a light bulb or a light switch moment, because change is gradual. Change happens in increments. It's not that all of a sudden you are unawakened and then you meet someone who is awakened and then you become awakened. No, it all happens through life. In fact, that's one of the things that my father talks about in his writings, is that Rumi had to have had something in order for Shams to be able to ignite that fire, right? It's not that Rumi was totally disconnected and did not have the spiritual seed to become one of the greatest mystics of all time. He had that planted in him. And he had a lot of influences and teachers that helped him cultivate that talent, to help him cultivate that insight and that wisdom. So there is that aspect of it too, that you have that already, but maybe you might come across someone who can take that and show you what may have been missing or how you can take that to the next level. So bringing this back though, as you guys probably know, I do tend to digress sometimes, but I feel like it all connects it in the end. But bringing this back to the notion of how do we create a community? Well, I think the first thing is you have to really know yourself, right? Because if you are trying to find a community that is similar in thoughts and similar in behaviors and similar in beliefs as who you are, well, then you have to know what those thoughts and beliefs and behaviors are, right? Because if it's something that's fleeting, if it's something that changes, then you may find that group, you may find that social circle, but after a while, as you change, you'll realize that that group can no longer meet your needs. And again, that's fine, right? As I mentioned, not every person, not every group will be able to travel the entire arc of life with you. But I feel like knowing who you are first can help sort of narrow down who it is or what it is that you're really looking for. Because sometimes it's far better to go in it with a group or go in it with a person that can help you, that can keep you accountable, that can, it almost sounds kind of like an exercise partner or a gym partner, but it's really much more than that. Because no matter what it entails, whether that's reading a book together, or whether that's meditating together, or whether that's talking about something deep and spiritual together, you'll be surprised how much of an influence that can have on you. In fact, that's one of the things I love a lot. As much as I love creating these videos, what I love even more is engaging in a very deep and moving spiritual talk with someone who is really as interested in the topic as I am. Doesn't matter how much they know, doesn't matter how much I know, but as long as there is that interest, that can fuel me for hours. I will not know food, I will not know sleep. In fact, I'm known, if you ask my wife, I'm known to get tired very quickly and to go to bed, not early, but certainly you will see me, yawning here and there, just like anyone else would. But the point being that if it is a spiritual discussion, no matter how tired I am, no matter how late in the night it is, I can be up till 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and I won't even notice it. And unfortunately, those times are a little bit few and far between now. Maybe God is putting me on this journey to create these videos and create this platform to invite and welcome a new group of people or a new sort of chapter in my life where I can have more of those spiritual discussions. But for now, it's just me talking into this iPhone, and you guys watching and listening, and then hopefully learning something from it. But on this notion of spiritual community, one thing that I do want to say, which I think is very important, is that with the current relationships that you have, it's very important that you don't all of a sudden just discard them. Right. I talked earlier about, how you have to decide whether a certain relationship fits. And that's true even outside the kind of the parameters of spirituality, right? You change, people change. Sometimes you realize that, maybe this isn't the best of company that I should be with. And I've certainly had to do that. And for me, it was kind of hard because I sometimes took it personal. I sometimes felt like I was being mean or bad or just not a good person for kind of closing doors. What I didn't realize was that, sometimes you have to close doors in order to open new ones. If you're hanging out with people that are bringing you down, if you're hanging out with people that are not helping you realize your true potential, that maybe don't have the best of intentions, then you need to cut those ties because that's going to influence your spiritual growth perhaps more than hanging out with people that do fan those flames, right? It's kind of a little bit of both. So you have to take stock of your current relationships, but you also have to handle it with grace and with care, realizing that just because someone isn't perhaps on the same part of the journey as you are, That doesn't mean that you can't look upon them with compassion, with mercy, with love. It just means that you're being rational. You realize that, in order to progress, you have to let go of things, but at the same time, there is a part of you that wishes them well, that wants them to succeed, that wants them to grow. And maybe you've tried to help them, but unfortunately, you've done all you can, and it's time for you to move on. So that's an important aspect of it too. It's not just finding the people, but it's also about managing your current relationships, managing your current social circle as well. And when I say social circle, it's important to realize that I don't mean that you need to go out there and you need to find 10 new friends or you need to find 10 new spiritually aligned people. It can literally just be one person. And if you can't even find one person, then do what I'm doing right now. Turn on your camera and talk. Talk whatever is on your mind. Talk whatever is in your core. Maybe there's no one to listen to you, but just talk, let it out. Express it. As human beings, we need to express, we need to communicate. That's why this life is so important from the community aspect of it, because even though we all go through our own spiritual journeys and we all live our own lives and have our own paths that we must take, we're all doing this together. And there may be times where we're more isolated than others, but at the end of the day, we're all walking each other home. We're all guiding each other. We're all teachers for one another, and we all can learn from one another. So I hope this video kind of gets you thinking about your own spiritual community, whether that's one person, whether that's 100 people, whether that's no one, right? Sometimes your spiritual community might be in forms that you might not even realize. I mentioned earlier books and spiritual teachers. Just because they're not here, just because you can't talk to them, doesn't mean that they're not part of your social circle. Sometimes a book is really a two-way street. You're reading something and you think it's the communication's being transmitted one way, but there's something in your heart that is already there, that is being primed, that if it wasn't there, then that book couldn't have triggered it within you. It's kind of like what I was saying earlier about Rumi and Shams. If Rumi did not have those ingredients within, then Shams couldn't have taken those ingredients and crafted something that Rumi could then admire and be like, okay, I have this incredible gift, I have this incredible connection, which I'm sure he understood he did, but as I said, I think Shams really helped him see it in perhaps a different light. So sometimes it always astonishes me when someone reads a book and is so amazed at learning something new and amazing. Well, where do you think that reaction came from? You had to have that understanding or that ability to understand deep within you in order to even appreciate those words. So admire that. Don't just admire the words. Don't just admire the person. Don't just admire the spiritual teacher. Admire the incredible person within that has the ability to appreciate that. Because you can give someone who's lived in the forest all their life the power of now, and you can give someone that, is recovering from depression and, maybe the first person, it's just words. It's just funny words to them, but to the person that has hit rock bottom, to, wanting to change their life, it can mean an absolute game changer. But one of them is realizing that, there is that capability inside. There is that ingredient for spiritual transformation. So community can happen in a lot of ways. Even these comments boards sometimes, when you go in these spiritual videos, take the time to respond to a few comments, right? It doesn't have to be just these videos, but just take the time to respond to other people. Show them that you're reading their comments. Show them that you care about the information that they're sharing, right? Because sometimes we all hide behind screen names and we all hide behind avatars, but there's a person at the other end of that, right? And they have feelings and they have emotions and they want support and they want to feel like they're being heard. So it's so important, never discount the fact that just because this person is behind the screen, that they can become one of your greatest friends. In fact, some of the people that I feel most connected with, I haven't even met yet. But through their writings, through my communications with them, I feel a very strong affinity. I feel like there is something beyond just, the typical friendship, the typical connections that we establish in this world. God has a certain plan and purpose for it, but, I have yet to understand it. So treat your community with care. Make sure that your existing relationships, whether you decide to keep them or not, that you also treat them with care and compassion. And ultimately realize that even though you may be searching for, that person to really fan your flames and to really help you, realize also that there is some person inside you that is already there, right? Without sounding too arrogant, I feel like the 34-year-old Najim is kind of like a little bit of a mentor and a friend to an 18-year-old Najim or a 21-year-old Najim. So sometimes you'd be surprised who is in your community. It may just be an older version of yourself. So I'll leave it at that. I hope this sparked some intrigue. I hope this sparked some sort of a transformation to look at your social circle, to look at who you're spending time with, whether they're here or they're not, whether they're across the globe or not, whether they're even alive or not. Really take stock of all your relationships and treat them with care, because everyone has the ability to help spark and transform you. But it's up to you to make that discernment and to make that decision. But as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy day and your busy schedule. And I wish you guys the best of luck on this journey, the best of success, of course, hopefully surrounded by those who share similar values and similar traits and can help spark that. But also realize that even for the people that don't, they can sometimes teach you a little bit more than the people that do. So I'll leave you with that. I wish you a wonderful day ahead, and I look forward to seeing you next time.